Insider can really talk about that with her Asian Indian background and a patriarchy, misogyny, all the isms, right? All the phobias, all the hate. A world where we are all just seen as human beings. We have value, dignity, respect, and all we need to live how we choose.
Ladies, I want to ask you too, if there's anybody who you've invited who's new to the app, I should see a party hat. People who don't have pictures and no bios, that's a red flag to me. And so please let us know if you're inviting guests and what. I put it in the chat so that I don't remove them from the room. And do understand, if you're out in the audience, we do need you to have a bio if you're in the room or if you want to come to the stage. It's up to Danny and the beautiful, lovely presenters who stays and who goes.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much. So there are a few people here that fall into that category. So make sure we give you some time to give us some bios so that we know you're not a bot, not trolling us here. Myth and Polly, welcome to Clubhouse. We see your party hat. But make sure you do have photos, bios. So put something up there so that we know you're the real deal here. Okay, we really would appreciate that. Otherwise, Melissa is going to do what she just said. Tawana is my sister from my Sisters Lace Up. I don't even know when to call it a room. It's my Sisters Lace Up Life. But thank you for joining us. Dronus, hey, how are you? I would love for you to moderate as well, if you don't mind. Sam Scully, she has her own drone academy. She is like drone extraordinaire. Got my grandson doing drones because of her. Yeah, that part. Shireen, tell us who you are. I don't know who you are, but I'd love to know.
Oh, goodness. I'm in the book. She is in the book.
Oh, that's Brother Shireen. Oh, what in the world? Oh, no, girl. Yes. She says, I'm in the book.
And she even put on her profile picture, Danny. Damn.
Oh, my God. Now she did. Yeah, she just switched up. I don't see it. Wait, let me pull to refresh. Oh, I hadn't pulled to refresh. Okay, thank you. Got
I'm
it.
in full support, 100%. But I'm in the book.
Lord.
My part starts in the microaggressions and how you kill us at work. I got bars, but I'm gonna let these ladies do their thing. But
okay, well,
that's where I sit.
Thank you.
And Shireen is a dear friend of mine.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, well, now we got it all straight. Thank you. All right, listen, y'all go ahead and share this room out. But in the meantime, we're gonna get started. Okay, here's what I want to do. I just want to talk. I'm going to have a conversation. This is our after dinner chat tonight. So I want to start with Regina. Regina, I want you to, well, you know what? I'm not going to start necessarily with just Regina. Y'all tell us how y'all got this thing going. Like, where did this all start? Somebody tell us.
Well, it started when Syra ran to be elected legislator to the House of Representatives from Colorado, the Denver area, Denver in particular. She ran against a long-term incumbent who has been there forever and done nothing. And before we get to that, my husband had an East Indian woman in his office who was working with Muslim people at the airport who could not get back into the country. So she was volunteering her time as a lawyer to do that. And she had gone to a meeting of this legislator at the police office. And she said, what are you doing to protect these people's civil rights? And remember, these were American citizens. And her staff told me that civil rights was not one of her issues. Okay, I was done. At that, I was done. And I went to work on Syra's campaign. And
so then I can sort of pick.
Yes.
So when I was running for office, my entire platform was anti-racism. And, Colorado one is extremely white. It might be the whitest congressional districts in the country. And at every single event where I would speak, there'd be a line out the door of white ladies telling me, not just waiting in line to tell me I've got them wrong, not all white women, not them. And I did this. They wanted to meet for lunch. They wanted to meet for dinner. And because I was courting votes, I would do it. Of course, none of them voted for me anyway. But anyway, I lost. And after I lost, one of Regina's former white friends, we'll call her Karen, called Regina and said, I'm done with Cyrus. She hates all white people. The straw that broke that Karen's back was my referring to Beto O'Rourke as a white savior. I posted about him being a white savior, and I said I donated to his campaign, and I said if I lived in Texas, I would vote for him. Multiple things can and are true, obviously. But Karen goes to Regina and says, I'm done with Cyrus. She hates all white people, but can you arrange for a lunch for us? And so Regina comes to me, and I was like, you know what, Regina, no, but I got, there's a laundry list of white ladies who've asked me for the same. I'll put it together. If you come with me, let's have a joint dinner. And so we did that. And it was like full white women Broadway musical, like crying, angry, pacing around the table. You're so mean. You guys are reverse racist. And we posted about it on Facebook. The next day it went viral. And Regina and I were like, all right, if we're doing it, I think we might as well do it and get it. And she came up with the title Race to Dinner. And that was it. That was actually exact 4 years ago. It was February 2019.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So now you're in that place, and what comes first? Is it the Race to Dinner org? Is it the book? Is it the document? Where does everything fall into line?
First came Race to Dinner. And as we started doing the work, Syra was busy posting everything like young folks do on social media.
I'm 48.
and a Hollywood director got in touch with us, and she said, I've been following you for a while, and I want to do a documentary. We look at each other and we go, yeah, right. And the next thing we know, she shows up with a filming crew.
Yeah. So that was,
wow.
Somebody, white woman who had been following my congressional campaign, she reached out to me the day we posted about it on Facebook and said, I've been trying to figure out how to capture this work, and now this is it. Like there's like a place we could do a movie here. And so she did. She came in July, and we'd only done a few dinners at that point because we just started in February. And she shot the whole dinner that you can see right there at the movies available on iTunes and Vimeo. And we continued to do dinners. In February of 2020, The Guardian did a big story on us that went super viral. And the next thing we're asked to go on Piers Morgan, Good Morning Britain, and all this other stuff. And then the world shuts down March 2020, as we all know, with COVID. And that month, I had a literary agent because I'd published a book before, got in touch with her. We put together a book proposal, sold it. She sold it on the spot. And so it's sort of serendipitous that the book actually came out November 1, a couple months ago, and the movie came out just a couple of weeks later. It wasn't really timed that way, but it's kind of been beautifully timed, actually, because a lot of people are saying that it's really cool to read the book and then actually see what we're talking about in the book on film, on screen.
And they are absolutely right. Done it all. I have seen this documentary 100 times, if I've seen it once. Honest to goodness. I mean, I was just, it's like, gosh, I wish it was, I just wanted to keep going and going and going. I just want to just keep going. But I have to say that I bought two of the books. So I was going to give it to one of my best friends who is white. Yeah, right. Walk me through it. So what I want you to do is walk us through what it means to say, like this book is aimed at white women who just need to stop being nice and start dismantling white supremacy. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, okay, I think we have a very good example yesterday. Okay.
Great. Nothing
so
like
yesterday we had 3 mass shootings, I think. And since the beginning of the year, we've had 39. We've had more mass shootings than we have days in the year. And white supremacists worship guns, do they not? They worship guns. Anybody who is a racist white supremacist owns probably several guns. And every time we have a mass shooting, more and more white men go out and buy more guns. Now, we know that they buy those guns to protect themselves from us. You know, we know that. There's nothing in question. But white women refusing to tell the truth about the guns and letting their children be shot up in their schools. Who does that? Who does that? To protect white men and their guns. Who does that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the thing is, Danny, everything comes down to white supremacy culture, and we see it, and white women just think it's like the default, right? Like everything it just is what it is. And they'll say that too. It is what it is. And, we can start with the perfectionism of white women and their rabid, violent desire and drive to be perfect, which doesn't exist, which means that they're horrible to themselves. They're horrible to each other in a never-ending quest to be the best at everything, the prettiest, the skinniest, the blondest, the best looking this, the best looking that, the best house. And they shit all over each other. They hardly have sisterhood or community, and de facto, and then they punch down, right? So we obviously are beneath them in the socio-political economic order. And so their quest to be perfect is killing everybody. It's killing us all. And so I think that's what's sort of been the biggest thing that has been an aha for a bunch of white women who've read this, like, oh my God, I never realized. But yes, that's right. Yes. And so when they start talking about anti-racism work, they want to be the best. We all saw this in the summer of 2020 when they all discovered systemic racism after George Floyd was murdered, is who is going to do anti-racism the best? Who is going to perform anti-racism the best? And you saw it. We saw it. There's one, it wasn't the Oscars. I think it was the Golden Globe, where a bunch of white actresses brought Black and brown women as their dates, like accessories. Like, let's all outperform each other. And then they're competing in that space too. And when they get shot down, when they don't do it perfectly, when they get called out, they leave. They leave because they need, if they're not the best at it, if they're not the most perfect at it, they'll go away. So they get right out of the game. So they get in there, they put up their little black box on Instagram to show how radical they are. And when someone calls them out for their bullshit, they leave because they're not perfect at it. And that is a very big problem.
Wow.
It is. It's a huge problem.
Yes. So where does that, take us into the book. Let's go into the book a little bit. Let's go into the book. Shireen is here. Shireen's in the book. Talk about the book. How did you get all of this into this little book? I mean, it's a little book. It's only 160 pages, and that includes the acknowledgement and then the other guide to unlearning, which, by the way, is a whole conversation at the end of this book. I have to tell you, it's a guide to unlearning, right? The whole book is centered around the race to dinner model, right? And both of you are moderating these conversations between these white women about their racism and their white supremacy. And how is the book a tool for the white women to deal with their stuff? Because this is written for white women. So tell us, how is this book being handled? How is this book being accepted? I've seen the reviews. I've seen Goodreads. You've got like almost 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, there's already almost over 5,000 people right now reading your book just on the Goodreads, right? And or who want to read the book, and then you've got another 300 that want to read it, and then on the Amazon, you've got nothing but the everything that's on Amazon is incredible. What people are saying is like, white people, if you don't want to read it, you need to read it. So talk about the book. What is it about the book, and how do you get white women to read this book?
Well, I think a lot of it is other white women getting them to read the book, getting it in their hands, having conversation. To me, the most important part is after you read the book or watch the documentary or both, have a conversation with somebody, because there's so much to unpack. White women look at this and they think, well, not me. And then they started reading it and they go, oh my God, that's me. That's me.
Yeah, totally, Danny. I mean, further to that, we just got word. I mean, this is truly, I worked in publishing for 12 years before This book came out. It's in its fourth printing as of this week, after 2.5 months, which is kind of unheard of. I mean, tens of thousands of books are out there right now. And as you put it, it's sort of stunning, amazing reviews. Also equally stunning, not one single newspaper or magazine has given it a book review. So not even the New York Times, and it's a New York Times bestseller. So the mainstream press is doing what they always do, which is ignoring us, which is fine. But no, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. People are talking about it. And, I would love, if Shireen, are you still there? Shireen's still there. One of the chapters that appears to be the most popular, and it's Regina and I both said it's our favorite chapter. So, in anyone who's worked in any white institution, which most of us have, what happens, right? Like, you do something that pisses off a white person and you become the problem, right? You're the problem. You have a personality problem. You're not a team player, and you get ghosted, or you get demoted, or you get fired, and then you get blacklisted or blackballed. Even those words, blacklisted and blackballed, are racist, and it's an individual thing. You're a problem. So we were like, how do we show that this is not individual, but it's systemic? So Regina and I sit down and we're like, what if we interview Black, Indigenous, Latina, Asian women in different parts of the country in vastly different professions? And that chapter on what it's like to work with white women is that. It is damning. And I'm not going to say who it is, but a very famous white woman who refused to blurb the book when she got the manuscript said she felt bullied throughout the book, and when she got to that chapter, she felt like she was punched in the face collectively by a gang of women of color. and I was like, well, guess what it feels like to be us, Yeah, so Shireen, if you're willing, do you want to talk about like your experience and even maybe read a couple sentences? I have it in front of me if you don't.
Before we get to Shireen, let me do a quick reset because I just removed the white supremacists from the room. Oh. So what I'm doing is I'm reading everybody's bios. And protecting the space, and really
was it the white guy Andrew or something? I saw him in there.
Yeah, well, I'll just say they're removed and blocked.
Okay.
But I'm just reset the room because y'all are phenomenal and valuable. And so thank you all for coming. We're not going to let a couple of bad actors in any way overshadow these gorgeous ones and their message. But I do have to tell some of you that I'm going to be removing you because you have no bio. And I don't know who you are. And unless the people on the stage know who you are and can vouch for you, it's just good practice these days, especially when you have this kind of brilliant speaking, to have a bio. That way people don't confuse you for someone who isn't representing the space very well. So this isn't the best room to be in without a bio, because I'm going to be removing you from the room, as will other moderators. And it's not personal, but do take the time to do that, because we want you to be able to come and hear stuff like this, hear conversations like this. We want you to be a part of it, but you're going to have to learn the ways of Clubhouse, because people like myself who are beta testers and Danny Smith Mathis, we don't play. So you need to pull it together and get your bio together. All love. Microphone's back to you, ladies.
Thank you so much, sis. Thank you so much. That's why she's here. Because she knows I have to do my thing, and I can't do my thing and do all of that. So anyway, go ahead. So where we at?
Okay. So we're in the chapter on microaggressions. Shireen, are you cool with talking a little bit about it?
Yeah. Do you want me to read it, or do you want me to give my perspective? Tell me.
How about this? Let me read the first sentence in the chapter, and then you can take it away.
Okay.
Or the first paragraph. We're going to be honest. It's not easy working with you. White women constantly throw us under the bus. You silence us, steal our ideas, inflict, quote, microaggression after microaggression. We put that word in quotes because there's nothing micro about the hate you give in boardrooms, operating rooms, newsrooms, classrooms, kitchens, bars, theaters, stadiums, Hollywood, Broadway, Silicon Valley, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, party planning, and every other workspace. And then we go on to interview a bunch of Black, Indigenous, and Brown women. So Shireen is one of them. So Shireen, if you want to talk, please.
Yeah, when I explain my section of this, I explain it from the economic framework of it. But this whole section really, like, most people should read, because there is a sense of ownership that women, especially white women, have over Black women's content. That somehow we're here to perform and to work for them. We're not supposed to be here to have our own ideas. We're not supposed to be able to lead them at all in any form, organizationally or otherwise. We are supposed to, we're supposed to be a sidekick. We're supposed to only be in support. And even when they're raising money on our ideas, we are not told, we're not granted any cuts of it. We are not allowed to be a part of the quote unquote new design. And by the way, once they do this new design, it usually fails because it's a stolen idea. It's not the nuance of all of the program is not there. They're too busy thinking they could do what we did without the intricate understanding of it. But they will use our name to gain that funding, and then all of a sudden we're nowhere to be found. Years after years, I formed the first organization to get women and girls of color online into tech in 1999. I also just formed, I know it's not just because it's been 10 years, formed Stop Online Violence Against Women in 2013. Both of those organizations, I consistently watched white women trying to either steal the idea or have me show up for them to raise money on my idea. The money didn't come back to my organization. It went to the broader organization, but it was still based on me showing up somewhere, talking about the work that we do and my ideas. I was told once that I was difficult, that as I had to keep coming back to ask for funds, that the way in which I presented myself was difficult. While they're basically pitching the work, pitching what we're doing, and raising like millions of dollars, while they're giving me $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, not enough to get the work done. So it was very fascinating to get to a place where, like, literally I had helped get a job. And she said when she got there, because she had to negotiate getting to the position, that as she's reading what her job is, as she's trying to get through what it means for her to do her job, by the way, white woman. And she reads it all the way through and she gets to a part and she goes, "You're in the grant." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You helped me get this job, but you're in the grant." They wrote me and the organization that I had in the grant to get the grant. And she was heading that job. There was no conversation with me. And if she was not someone who knew me, nobody would have told me that. But I was in the grant. That's how they raise money. I had no idea that was something that was a practice. And in DC's, I've learned now, is a big practice. The challenge that I have is that those types of things continue to happen, and then the same organizations that put you in a grant try to discredit you as an expert in the field. It's always mind-boggling to me, but that's my life. That's my life for decades. That's not my life like 5 years ago. That's my life since 1999.
Shireen, I want to read. Is it okay if I read a little bit of what you wrote when you say you steal from us? May I read something from your chapter?
Sure.
It's obvious how many times a day white women steal ideas and work from Black and brown women. The interesting part is they claim to be helping us when in truth they are making a profit or gaining power for themselves. I learned recently that white progressives going after funding will name drop Black and brown people that they are associated with to raise the funding, but they do not intend to give any of that funding to those organizations. So most of these organizations don't even know they are being named. White people will give funding to white people as long as they name drop a Black organization enough. While our names are being used, we don't know what's happening and we aren't granted any of it. We are starved from the funding while what we do is used as leverage for funding. I only learned this after the fact as I was struggling to keep Digital Sisters going. I helped a friend get a job with one of these organizations. I coached her through applying for it. I tried to get her to negotiate better. I was also a reference for her and got the job, and she got the job.
Really, seriously.
I mean, this is just, they are using me while still in public. They act like I'm not important and not doing anything. But privately, they are using me and stealing from me for their gain. My ideas, my work, my experience. Yes, it's a practice. Oh my gosh. Unlike Regina, unlike Syra. I just have to tell you, Shireen, thank you. And everyone that, I don't even know if there's other people here who have participated in this book, but I tell you what, I'm so thankful that this is where it is at this point in time in history. And this is nothing but a historical thing happening here. And this is a historical conversation as far as I'm concerned. And I want to thank everyone for joining this room, Conversations with Danny. Please join the club and you will have lots more conversations. This is not going to be the last conversation because I had Regina first. Now I have Regina and Syra. Now I've got to get Regina, Syra, and the executive producer, the lady that actually produced the documentary, Deconstructing Karen. Regina, Syra, I want, and thank you again, Shireen, for your courage and just for your transparency and keep it moving, sis. Keep it moving. And I am, by the way, a grant writer and a proposal writer. So just let's talk. We can help each other out. Syra and Regina, I want you to unmic, and I'd love for you to talk to us about your first race to dinner meeting with the 8 white women and what the documentary was based on. Tell us about it. Just tell us about it. What were your feelings about it? What did you do differently from the first one than you did with the second one, the third one, the fourth one, and all the subsequent ones coming? Go ahead, talk to us. Y'all just hit the microphone down at the right and you can unmute because you're not
look
unmute.
at that. Okay. I didn't know what to do. Okay. This is I'm not used to Clubhouse. Sure. So we've we have a bunch coming up this year as well. We continue to do dinners remotely through COVID, and they've shifted a little bit since the one you see in Deconstructing Karen. That question, it used to be we started the dinners with raise your hand if you're racist, and it would be, as you could get, like nobody, and then I would raise my hand, and then they would be very confused, and then I would talk about how, as an Asian American, I've been institutionalized to be anti-Black, and okay, they're sort of, they look at Regina then, and they're like, oh, your partner's anti-Black, and Regina, what do you say?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What I always say, and Black people know it, we know that every immigrant who comes to this country, it aspires to whiteness, and they believe themselves to be better than us. We know it.
Yep. That's so then they're a little confused, and then Regina will say, okay, so none of you guys are racist, fine. How many of you would trade places with us? So this is where it's interesting, is they haven't lied yet. We've done this with hundreds of women at this time. Zero. Okay, so you're not racist, all right, but none of you will trade places with us. Okay, so then I'll say, okay, if you have to trade places with one of us, who would it be? And guess 100% would trade places with who?
You.
Me.
Right.
Me. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you know the entire ecosystem, white at the top, Black at the bottom, and the rest of us in between. So let's start there. So, but by the way, that would take, we would spend a lot of time arguing with these white women. They're the exception. They don't have a racist bump in their body, blah, blah, blah. So we shifted it. When was it, Regina? Like 20, I can't remember exactly. It was
maybe 2021 or 20.
Yeah, like a year and a half ago or something, mm-hmm. Where we shifted it to, we start the dinner. And I think the second one we did really stands out in my mind. It was outside of New York City, in Westchester County. And the question is, everyone sits down and we say, okay, name one racist, xenophobic thing you've thought or done recently. And they all look like they're about to pee themselves. And they'll do it. And so we did this one dinner, and the woman who went last said, oh my God, when you all started, I thought to myself, I'm in the wrong place. Like, I got nothing. And she said, not only do I have she goes, I've done everything the 7 other women have just talked about, and I have my own list. And so it's been really interesting since we shifted it. the conversation has become richer, I think, and the hurt feelings have become lesser. Because if we just start foundationally that you all are racist and let's talk about it, it's really shifted the tone of the dinners. Wouldn't you say, Regina?
I would say 100%. I want to share with you guys a story about the book. I went to lunch with a group of ladies today, and we all are in a mentor program at a local high school. And one of the women is white presenting. She's a Black woman, but when you look at her, you can't tell she's a Black woman. But once she opens her mouth, you know she's a sister. And she made the comment. She said, and she's in her 70s. She said, what I really took away from this book is, she says, I look back and so many things were going on and I didn't know what it was happening. She said, now I have words to talk about what had happened to her over her life.
Wow. She has words. You empowered her.
Mm-hmm.
You empowered her. That is phenomenal. That is just phenomenal.
That's what I had a call with a Indian woman in London yesterday, and she said that she, for 12 years, has worked for extremely violent, toxic white people. And over Christmas, she reread our book and rewatched our movie and just came back last week and decided she was done and was going to quit because she didn't have to take it anymore. And so, like, it's pretty, and she did. She just quit her job and she's going to move on to find something else. And so that's been sort of the coolest thing, is hearing from Black and brown women that they feel seen and heard. And, we're not crazy here, even though we've been gaslit. You're not.
Yes.
No, this is all very systemic and very planned and very well executed by white people.
Yes. So white supremacy, we know it's a global power system of mass oppression, and it's a war against people of color in general, but particularly against Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So, having said that, I want you specifically to tell us why you raised your hand at that table when it said, who in here is a racist? Why'd you raise your hand?
Because I am. I've been born and raised to be. And I can just talk about, my whole life, right? Why the South Asian diaspora exists, period. Why? Because of British colonialism. And British, quote, colonialism was British genocide of my people. That's why my parents are here. So the British destroyed South Asia and left it, went from one of the richest countries in the world to one of the poorest countries in the world, and it's still continuing to dig its way out. And so what happens after 1965, the Immigration Act of 1965, which was made possible by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So it is thanks to Black people, Black Americans, that my parents were able to leave a country that had been ravaged by white British people to come here. What were they taught? Thanks to the media, by the way. Oh, by the way, they already had, King and Queen were there. They already were born into white supremacy, into colonialism. They were born while the British were still there. But watching the media, right? Our media is exported around the world. So they came here already knowing I was taught to assimilate. It was always the word assimilate. And even though the words white it was never used, God, they would never say white. They would say American. We knew what American meant. American meant white American. So assimilate to white Americans. De facto, I don't remember a time I didn't know that I would do anything to be white. I would pray to God every night. We weren't religious people. I would pray to be white, but I also knew that I was really grateful that I wasn't Black. I cannot remember a time in my life that wasn't the case. What does that look like? It's the same thing that it looks like for white folks, because we were taught the same way. Cross the street if you see a Black person, roll up your window, all of that stuff. And what it also meant was self-loathing. Hate yourself, no wearing Indian clothes, no smelling. My parents would rather die than let white people in the house after they cooked Indian food, because we smell dirty, we smell like ethnics, all of it. So it required self-loathing as well. So when I talk about racism, I will talk about my own internalized racism and xenophobia too, against my own people. against my own people. And so none of this changes unless all of us are extremely honest about the hate that we receive, that people have been conditioned to give to us, and that we in turn give. That's the only way any of this changes.
Wow, that is so beautifully said. My gosh. All right. This is Regina Jackson and Syra Rao. We are here talking about Deconstructing Karen documentary. If you haven't seen it, get it. It's on iTunes. And where else is it?
Vimeo.
Oh, Vimeo. Yeah. Okay. iTunes and Vimeo. The book, White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better. They are the co-authors of that. You can get it on Kindle, on Amazon, audiobook. It's in paperback. Just get it. Read it. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. And I just love.
Hello? Danny, you are muted. Okay.
Did y'all not hear anything I just said?
No, you just said
I love.
I'm sorry. I wonder how that happened. Okay. So I just love the end of the book, this guide to unlearning, this conversation with you all, and just how you go through this. And when did you realize that your silence would not protect you? And how did it change your priorities? Regina, tell us your answer.
Well, one of the things that I think happened to me is I retired from my corporate career very early at 48 years old. So I had an opportunity to start 2 new businesses and then race to dinner. And one of the things when you work for yourself, one of the things you realize is you don't have to put up with anybody's nonsense. And that is liberating to know, you know what? I can walk away from here. I don't need to have you as a customer. I'm not going to walk around you. You feel what you feel. That's the biggest thing for me, is not having to put up with people's nonsense. Because I think as Black people, just like Syra and East Indians are, Asians, all Asians are socialized. We're socialized the same way. We don't like our hair. We don't like the color of our skin. We don't like this. All of that is white supremacy. And when I walked away from my corporate world, I learned to love myself just as I am. No changes, don't need hair, don't need any of that stuff. I love who I am, and I know who I am. And once you know who you are, nobody can tell you who you are.
Yeah. Danny, I think that, we all believe, and I firmly know that it's not true. I do not believe it anymore, that somehow silence will save you. And that's ahistorical. That's never been the case. And so for me, I've known my whole life, right? Like I said, I don't remember a time that I didn't know. I didn't know the ecosystem. And so this whole thing that white people have, it's complicated. No, it's not complicated. It's very simple. Your feelings on what you have to do to change it might be complicated, but the system in of itself is very simple. And so in terms of my silence, though, we were asked this by Penguin, it's in the back of the book, when did you know that your silence wouldn't save you? And like I said, I've known this intellectually my whole life. When did I really know? I was a third-year law student at NYU Law in the fall of 2001. And I had a clinic at the U.S. Attorney's Office on Tuesday mornings of that semester, which happened to be right next door to the World Trade Center. So I was at the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. I was one of the many people coming up into the building after the second plane had hit. And so I was one of the thousands of people you see in that sort of iconic picture video running up Church Street. And I, left my apartment that morning in a suit and a backpack and my high heels as the model minority. And I came home 12 hours later, bloody, shoeless, mangled as a terrorist. That's what happened that day. And it happened overnight, Department of Homeland Security. I internalized my fear of people like me. I mean, it was all that, you see something, say something. I practically was calling the cops on myself. That's how afraid I became of this myself, you know? And so even still, even after that, it took me another decade to start speaking up. So that just tells you how ingrained this is, how scared we are, even when we know. I mean, how many years later, after September 11th happened, that a man in the Sikh community was murdered in Arizona? You know, it happened right away and has never stopped. And so the silence and the fear and this notion that that our fear and our silence will save us is just not even true. It's just not true. And more, you know, I'm actively organizing or attempting to organize folks in the South Asian community where I am now. And it's really ingrained in our communities, and it's tough. It's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, I like this. I love this. I want to talk a little bit more, because Syra, I know you have a hard stop at 8, and there's so much to unpack here. I want to talk a little bit more about your work at Race to Dinner. I know it's centered on 8 to 10 white women at a time, and you come and have this dinner party discussion. How does it happen? How does anybody do it? How do I do a Race to Dinner? Like, if I wanted to hold one myself, could I do it? Do I have to be trained before I facilitate? What's the problem?
Okay, what we have started just this year, and we have one that's coming up on February 15th. And what we do is women of color, non-white women who want to do this work, we will host a 2-hour Zoom once a month, and we will tell you how we do it. This is what we do, and it's Syra, myself, and Lisa, who was our resident white woman, who makes the contacts and basically puts everything together. So we are doing that.
Yeah, you have a white woman. Okay, hold up. Did y'all just say you got a white woman in residence?
Oh, yeah,
I'm a white girl. Let me put my Teletubby and follow.
Okay.
The reason why, though, is because
They got a white woman in residence. I'm like,
they will say things to her and tell her stuff that they're not going to say to us.
yeah. Oh my gosh, you all are my sheroes. I just can't. I cannot. Oh my God.
But we would love, I mean, you know, we would love, we want as many Black and brown women who want to host these dinners to do it. You all know your communities the best. You know what's going to work. You know how it goes. But we are also very happy to share with everyone what we've done and what we know works and what doesn't work. So yeah, once a month, if you go to our Instagram, I don't know who's on Instagram, but if you're on Instagram, follow us at Race to Dinner, and in the link in our bio, we just put up the link to sign up for the Zoom for February. So sign up if you're interested, please.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Race to Dinner, everyone.
Yeah, it's up there. I see it.
Okay.
Racetodinner.com.
There you go. We got it here. Oh my goodness. All right. So can we've got some folks here on the stage, and I don't call it a stage. This is really Danny's living room. And so I want to give them opportunity to at least ask each of you a question, because we've got 13 minutes before Syra has to go. So I want to, Melissa, I want to just go around the room, and I want to start with you.
Well, I know y'all are badasses because I've removed about almost 60 plus white supremacist dummy troll accounts.
Are you
Yes.
Oh yeah, we've been busy. We've been busy, honey. We've been busy, honey.
I've been at the game. I'm tired of fighting.
Yeah, we've been busy. Yeah, Melissa told y'all we don't play up in. We don't play.
Good. I need y'all to know, because of my life on Clubhouse, most of them are following me coming up on stage. It happens on a regular basis. I'm sorry to keep doing that, but that's what happens.
Oh, that's okay, Sharina. They didn't got popped in the head.
We're used to it, you know.
we doing what we do, girl. We ain't scared.
We are not scared. We are not scared. I'm glad you were here. My contribution to the conversation is
okay. Melissa, you got a question? We got to move because we got to ask you.
No. I ain't got much. BB gun is popping. Y'all
stay on it, baby. Stay on it. Shireen, may I move to Dronus if you don't mind? Because you already all up in this.
Say that one more time.
May I move to Dronus, or do you have a question? Because I know you're already up in this. So.
I'm already up in it. If you want to bring up one or two other people, because I would like if Karen wants to come up or someone else, but yeah, definitely.
Okay. Is anybody?
A couple other people. Courtney, there's a few in the audience.
Well, you can do it. If you'd like to bring them up, you're a moderator, so you have the
okay.
You can do that, and you know how to do that, right? Invite him to speak. You know how to do it, sweetie?
Of course I do. Okay, hold on.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so while you're doing that, Dronis, you got a question for Syra or Regina?
I just had a comment. Hi, ladies. Thank you for enlightening me. But I was recently at CES in Vegas about 2 weeks ago, and I was representing Women in Drones, and they were doing interviews of these gorgeous blonde women who were talking about their careers in aviation and in the drone business. And what I felt there was that, you hear all this talk about how awesome their career is, but there's never a hand that says, hey, Sam, hey, Melissa, hey, Danny, let me bring you up here with me. And so I started getting emotional about that. So I definitely want to take your sessions because I don't want to get emotional. I want to get more powerful so that I know how to counteract that, because I know I'm in an industry I got the good old boys and I got the good old girls. In my question. Thank you.
Well, that's in our book, is how white people don't give us. They don't give us any flowers. They don't appreciate who we are, mentor us. They don't help us. And that, I can attest to that. And I think we see it all the time as women of color. I have had more white male mentors than white female. No female mentors.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% right. I'll tell you guys something. A couple years ago, I accidentally ended up at this horrible white woman conference called the Makers Conference. And it was literally, I was meeting some friends for a week-long vacation, and one of them was speaking at it. She was like, just stay here at this hotel, and I got to pass through her, and I ended up, it was at this conference. Long story short, Glennon Doyle, like the patron saint of white women, Glennon Doyle, is the keynote speaker. She had spoken the day before. And I looked at the doors and hugging her and kissing her ass and all the others. And I go over and I introduce myself to her. And I asked her, I said, so tell me, what black or brown woman did you have on stage with you yesterday to talk about racism and anti-racism? You know what she said to me? She said, I don't share the stage with anyone. And I was stunned. And I said, well, I gave her sort of my spiel. She said, well, you're getting really angry, and this is why a lot of us white women are kind of tired of engaging with people like you. Okay, this is Glennon Doyle. And here she is all over the place after George Floyd is murdered. Again, woe is me, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. But they don't, it's just, they're so hypocritical, and I would just say, like, at this point, again, this was like 3 years ago, and I'm in a very different mental state now. I certainly would have handled it differently, but just call them out. What is the worst? Like, that's the thing is, like, we talk about fear holding us back. They really freak out when you actually just openly call them out because they don't know what to do. They start crying, and then you call them out for that too. And then they don't. Then they're like, "Oh no, what am I supposed to do now?"
Yeah, we do that. We also I learned it. I did some white girl tears at the work and at work one time, and it really does work. It really works. Yeah. I want to have some other folks ask some questions. Thank you, Dronis. I want to jump down to Derez. You have some questions?
Yes, I do. These ladies have inspired me. My question is, how has your life changed since this happened to you? I didn't know if you addressed that, but that's what I'm curious about is what's different for you, like since you've been on TV and, all of these things are happening now, you're starting to become visible. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious. I
have to go places I don't really want to go. And more travel and speaking, and I'm kind of a homebody, and that's about the only thing. I think I was in the mall yesterday, and a young Hispanic man recognized me and came and talked to me. But beyond that, everything is, I still do my real estate business, and take care of my grandkids and things like that. So it hasn't been much of a change.
You know, what's interesting for me, because having run for Congress and having Shireen and I had about this at length, I mean, she just brought a whole trail of white supremacists into this clubhouse crew. I tend to bring those along to places as well. And, we've gotten tremendous amounts of death threats. My kids have been massive targets, have had to deal with multiple FBI agents, which guess how, like, these white dudes in police, organizations and FBI they're half the people sending the threats, right? And we're calling them to help us. It's ridiculous. But I would say, and P.S., I moved back to my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, this fall. And apparently while I wasn't even in town yet, and there was a crew of white parents who caught wind of my kid coming to school there, and they tried to get my kid kicked out of the school because of me being a terrorist against white people. And wait for it, they felt unsafe with me in the community. Wow. What has happened, and my son has been punched. He's 12, has been punched. He's been told to go back to his country, all the great things. What has happened since our work has kind of taken off in a very shockingly and spectacular way is they've gotten very quiet. So for me, that's been the nicest thing, is they've shut up and become quiet, because when you get white institutional stamps of approval, like the New York Times bestseller, now Time Magazine has excerpted our book, now we have been on Dr. Phil, so on and so forth. They've become quiet, and so I'm sure they're not engaging in the work. They just don't feel so emboldened to be such dicks openly to me and my son.
Wow, thank you for those answers. Wow. It's amazing how different, how your life can change, and you don't even realize you're with your kids, having to suffer as well. But my heart goes out to you for that. But I really appreciate the work you guys are.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. We've got 4 more minutes before we have to end the room. However, I do want to jump down to Karen, and then I want to go to Chocolate. Any questions for Syra and Regina? Karen, are you there?
Sorry, it's been a while since I used this app.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Regina. Hi, Syra. Hi, Shireen. Thank you so much for this book and for the film and everything. You are really shifting the culture and building a movement. And I'm so sorry it's led to such personal threats and all of that. But I just thank you from the bottom of my heart, and am trying to get every white woman I know to read the book and see the film.
And Karen, I'm so glad you finally came into my room. I've been trying to hook up with you for the last 6 months on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
But Karen is Karen. Her name is Karen, and people don't get it. And she has been working on trying to fix white women in different ways.
Yeah.
So if people don't remember, there was actually a viral video that Karen was like, "Barbecue Becky, you need to stop." There are women out there who are trying, but honestly, we still have to have these really difficult conversations. I think you call it racy conversations, right, Karen?
Yeah. Listen, hey, Karen's bio. Karen, you are a firecracker, honey. Karen are you still looking for a publisher for your book, White Women We Need to Talk?
Yes. Well, to Syra's, I had a book deal after that viral video. And I submitted 4 versions of the book, and ultimately the publisher rejected it because they said no one is going to want to read this because I was really, explaining the whole history of how we have behaved terribly since the origins of this country. And more recently, I've been looking at what is the origin of our behavior and how it's really rooted in oppression of women in Europe before colonization and white supremacy and all of that. And yeah, so we have been programmed to be like this. And we have to do a lot of work to deprogram ourselves and to build community with folks.
Wow. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you just for your care, concern, your love, and just for being truthful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Chocolate, what's happening? You follow a lot of people I follow, so that's why I'm giving you some space up here, sweetie. You have a question for Syra and or Regina?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that we're calling attention to, some of the Karens. I'm a big fan of Rashad Ritchie also. So, I just really like, what you guys are doing. But I was downstairs listening and, sometimes the generalizations, though, of all kind of strike me, because when I go in rooms in Clubhouse and I hear someone come on stage and say something like, Black people don't read, like that generalization and those like that, I mean, it runs all through me. And so I would say, as a 10-year military veteran and as a technologist in the Web3 space, Amazon solutions architect professional, I've had some really great white mentors that are women. I have had more white males, but I've had some good white women too who have been allies. So I can't even hate on them. And when they do come and I see that allyship, I'm like, oh, I'm really excited about it. Yeah. That's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm actually writing a book now. Thank you, Chocolate, for that. I really appreciate that. And not to cut you off, but I know Syra has she had a hard stop. She wasn't playing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to get out of here soon. I have somebody picking me up at 6:15. I'm in Denver.
Oh, okay, that's right. You're 2 hours behind us, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just want to thank you for that. But I thank you, Chocolate. Yeah, I have had a few white women who have been good mentors to me, real serious mentors to me, almost like sisters and mothers. So as we're wrapping up, Regina, tell us what's the next thing going for you all. And again, if you want to be involved, dinner, go ahead and click the link for Instagram and hook up with Regina and Syra through Race to Dinner on Instagram. So if you want to get trained on how to do one of their Race to Dinner dinners, there you go. That's how you're gonna get to it. But Regina, tell us what's next. What's going on?
I will be in Chicago on February 24th. Doing a presentation, a luncheon to benefit the Black firefighters of Chicago. We've got a couple of things going in here in Denver, that are like showings in theaters of Deconstructing Karens and then Talk Back. We've got a plan to go to New York. We are working on funding of that, and then we'll be going to London for sure, and maybe Paris